Welcome back for another Full Build Friday. You might have to go ahead and call me Heat Miser, because I'm bringing some green to this month of gray skies and white snow, though it is a build that you all voted on. Now before you go running off to vote on the next one, plant yourself in that seat, and let's take a look at the flowery femme fatale, Poison Ivy.
I can't resist you.
No man can.
But before this pretty plant can grow into a full build, let us sow some goals to work off of. Born under the name of Pamela Isley, she was a brilliant young woman who studied botany and chemistry in college, an education that she funded with designer drugs and pheromones, which she did use to control the dean. This ended up landing her a position at Wayne Enterprises, which proved to be a short tenure due to her lax morals before she joined a shady program led by the charismatic Jason Woodrue. He convinced Pamela to join him in an experiment that left her comatose for months, only to awaken transformed, bearing a plant-like physiology. She used her newfound powers of pheromones and other toxins to become an eco-terrorist who clashed with Batman, though more recent stories has had her turn over a new leaf. Her powers have also developed, blooming into full-blown chlorokinesis and toxikinesis, as well as access to the green, the source of all plant life on Earth. With these powers, she can easily entrap others, grow monstrous plant minions, and even tear down skyscrapers. As her powers have grown, she has become less human, with regenerative powers on par with plants, regrowing lost limbs with even greater ease than a plant regrows its branches. Honestly, this isn't too different from my original build goals for this character, but in my initial iteration, I based her more around her less powerful appearances when she was just starting out as a character. This time, we're going all in on her plant and poison powers, while still trying to include the flower-based toxins and chemicals that she makes considerable use of. And I want those both to come from her powers and her considerable pharmaceutical skills, so I will be tapping into those aspects of her original build. For this particular case, we will still be using the human ancestry, and I think that's a tiny bit important to call to mind her roots. But we will graft the Ardande heritage onto this banal baseline. Through this, she can gain the Spring Soul lineage feat, and gain Tanglevine as an innate cantrip, which is handy for slowing and potentially pinning down foes. We lean into a brilliant mind for ability boost, as we increase her intelligence and wisdom alike, which actually isn't too different from my first crack at Ivy's build. As a bit of a spoiler alert, we aren't going for the Alchemist class. That being said, I do think alchemy, or chemistry, is still important to her build overall. I had to tap into regional options for this one, but I managed to find the Wonder Taster background, which provides her with training in crafting and alchemical lore, as well as the alchemical crafting skill feat, allowing her to create the likes of silver-tongued mutagens to better manipulate others, or potentially plant-based poisons and bombs. Once again, we'll be boosting both her intelligence and wisdom to make her a mental monolith in all matters except sanity. Finishing out our ABCs is the Druid class, a wisdom-based casting class that is still, for some reason, Paizo, the only dedicated primal caster in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Now I don't want to get too tangled in that because there is actually quite a bit to look at here. One of the big boons of the remaster is that Ivy can gain plant empathy with her voice of nature. The Druid further provides her with Wild Song and Shield Block as a free feat, and then she lands on her Druidic order. She ends up using the Leaf Order, though I do wish there was a slightly more aggressive plant-themed order available to her, because while the personal plant pal of Leshy Familiar could be any number of her minions, and the training in diplomacy is good for her seductive tendencies, Cornucopia doesn't quite fit the avenging mother nature that she tends to go for. She has a bounty of spells to choose from even among her cantrips, which features Bramble Bush, Puff of Poison, Take Root, and Timber. From her first rank spells, there's picks such as Flourishing Flora and Noxious Vapors for offensive options, as well as the more utilitarian effects of Protector Tree, Wall of Shrubs, Summon Plant or Fungus, and Weave Wood, which are all fantastically on theme for her potent plant powers. Moving from spells to skills, we are already getting training in nature and diplomacy from our class and its order, and we then take further training in acrobatics, athletics, medicine, society, and survival. We're still taking a heavy focus on her mental aspects, though we do start with a boost to her constitution, which is then followed with increases to her intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. I would have liked to have her start with a higher charisma, but I do feel like reflecting her brilliance is far more important to the overall character, while wisdom is obviously increased in service to her class. I managed to restrain myself and actually not take an archetype at 2nd level, which features instead poison resistance. Ivy's pretty much immune to most poisons. Actually, do herbicides work on her? And while full-on immunity might be hard to get, this leans into that idea just a bit. For her skill feat, additional lore for plant lore feels like an obvious choice for her. For now, it'll make her trained in her chosen lore, but it will scale automatically going forward, which is just supremely handy. As a druid, our rosy red-headed ravager becomes an expert in fort saves, perception, and her nature skill at level 3. She'll grow ahead and use Ancestral Paragon to gain sunlit vitality, making her a bit more plant than person as she removes her need for feed. There's a grand garden to gather from here for 2nd rank spells. Among the whole host, Entangling Flora is a classic, but I do particularly like Fungal Infestation for the damage and debilitation alike. It does also remind me of one of Ivy's more gruesome plots that I've read about her pulling off. For the 4th level of our flowery but fatal female felon, we feature Forest Passage, bringing her more in line with the natural world to the point where it doesn't even impede her step any longer. We get a bit more medical with her skill feat as she takes Natural Medicine. Keeping in mind that this is a teen game, this will help her get her party back in shape after a fight, while also calling to mind some of her initial medical research. By 5th level, we get some ability boosts to Constitution, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. She becomes an expert in reflex saves, but that increase to Intelligence makes her trained in Intimidation, in addition to her skill increase making her a master in crafting. She can see through the eyes of the green a bit with Read the Roots, letting her seek a sap through their sprawling senses, which should also be handy for burrowing foes. With her 3rd rank spells, Wall of Thorns is a little typical, but Cordyceps Command is a creepy casting that captures control of individuals, though in some very specific ways that might not quite fit everything that she wants them to do. Though, on the topic of spells, Grown of Oak is a fascinating feat at 6th level that lets her cast Oaken Resilience at will. It'll always be a level lower than her top rank spells, but when she knows she isn't facing fiery foes, it's a great way to help her shore up her defenses, which are lacking a little due to her dexterity. Meanwhile, Specialty Crafting for Alchemy allows us to use her skill feats to continually expand on her more science-based side, rather than the more mystical might granted to her by the green. As is the case of most casters, 7th level might actually be lucky since it does come with a proficiency increase to make her an expert with her spells, whereas her skill increase means that she's a master of nature. Fast Recovery is a handy little general feat that might lean into Ivy's regenerative capabilities, but the big thing here is her 4th rank spells. There are a ton of solid damaging options here, between the likes of Bursting Bloom, Life-Draining Roots, Murderous Vine, and even Petal Storm. You have a wealth of options to pick from, and I implore you to look through them. As for her 8th level, Floral Restoration provides her with some more healing capabilities, and even lets her recharge a focus point. Now we just need a spell worth regaining a focus point for. Meanwhile, Morphic Manipulation is a must-have, making her Miracle Grow a plant with her skill feat alone, which is amazing with a feat like this, and also just a perfect fit for her. Normally, 9th level would only have a skill increase that would make Ivy a master in crafting. But she's going to use her human ancestry to take up Multi-Talented, which leads into an alchemist dedication. This will allow her to become trained in Deception, and also gives her a few versatile vials that she can pull off some quick alchemy with, making mixtures in the midst of mortal peril. This level starts tapping into 5th rank spells as well, which means we can become a real Avatar of the Green with Mantle of the Unwavering Heart, or Plant Form, whereas Entwined Roots gives her a way to protect her whole party. Though, I guess whether Ivy would shield miserable meatbags with plant life is something you might have to figure out yourself. Moving on to greener pastures, we finally see her boost her dexterity, followed by some increases to her constitution, wisdom, and charisma. We will immediately expand on her alchemist dedication with advanced alchemy, letting her prepare some chemicals to start off the day, as you do, before she gets influence nature. I was actually debating this one, since it's a bit more about animals than anything else, but if your GM is cool, maybe they'll let you change things up just a bit to make it fit this floral felon a bit better. We wield wild willpower and weapon expertise at 11th level, which also features a skill increase to make Ivy an expert in medicine. Though I guess you could go for a more personable option with diplomacy if you want to run that style instead. With robust health as her general feat, she enhances her healing capabilities along the same lines of her fast recovery and floral restoration. I think the 6th ranked spell that stands out to me here is Lignify, mainly due to its horrifying effect. But Nature's Reprisal and Rose's Thorns are also great for some zone control. Which, honestly, is kind of the name of the game of this build, as level 12 brings us Garland Spell. This is a really fun spell-shaping feat exclusive to the Leaf Order, that can create a secondary area of difficult and hazardous terrain, just in case the enemies get out of that first one. For something a little less substantial, we can take Consult the Spirits for her nature skill, which I think is a great way to reflect those times that she's reached out to the green and made contact with them, even getting some answers from them now and again. Level 13 usually hits pretty hard for martials, but medium armor expertise and weapon specialization doesn't quite have the same impact here as it does on them. The skill increase making her a master in a medicine is certainly nice, as is the Flowering Path ancestry feat that she picks up, just in case she didn't have enough ability to florally flood the field with her flowering friends, which is honestly exactly what she wants to do. Of course, we also have some spells here, and Regenerate is a nice non-plant themed option, which is particularly good because there isn't too much else this level that's really in her wheelhouse. Rolling like a stone, we hit into level 14 with Plant Shape, which is meant to call to mind some of her more monstrous mutations, or serve as a direct nod to the excellent Batman vs Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossover. Since she doesn't have Untamed Form, it just gives her a once per day casting of it, but she doesn't have to prepare it, and that's a nice little boon for her. She'll also take Continual Recovery as her skill feat, using that for further healing that she might provide her party with. Though I suppose one could argue that her Cornucopia spell kind of makes this obsolete, I just think it's still worth taking. As for 15th level, we'll take ability boost to Dexterity, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. Ivy only becomes a master spellcaster, but becomes a legend in nature because of course she does. Toughness as her general feat might be a little basic, but she's no fragile flower, not after everything that she's been through. The only plant spell among her 8th rank spells though is Burning Blossoms, which is certainly a weird one for her, but it does provide her with an alternative damage type than a lot of her other spells, so might not be a bad one to bust out every now and again. With the Sweet 16 for this seductive super, we see a Seizing of Impaling Briars, finally providing us with another focus spell, and one that's a bit more Nature's Vengeance-y, though it also has some serious Sleeping Beauty vibes. She also gets some solid use out of Ward Medic as her skill feat, letting her treat wounds on multiple allies at once, and maybe finally letting her get more value out of that rather than just relying on Cornucopia. After all that though, level 17 can look a little barren with the only class feature being a skill increase that makes her a legend in crafting. However, this level does also grant her Irresistible Bloom as her ancestry feat, and I feel like this is a fantastic means of covering her pheromonal powers, and the ability to manipulate the minds of others. There's also some real solid spell options here, such as Nature's Enmity, and One with the Land, allowing her to dive into the green and bring its full floral force to bear. I do want to take a second and acknowledge that Peshskin as her level 18 class feat is a little strange. I wanted her to have the plant-shaped feat before I took this one, with the basis of it coming from the drugs and mind-altering substances that she is often associated with. For something a bit less fantastical, if not practical, Legendary Professional lets Ivy put her plant lore to use to earn buku bucks, especially since she is one of the top individuals within her field. For her level 19 class features, she becomes a legendary spellcaster, a primal hierophant, and a legend in medicine. Die Hard is a simple feat that is meant to emulate her own survivability, but we do have some big gets in the form of Element Embodied and Nature Incarnate. These both transform Ivy, with the former letting her embody the woods, and the latter making her a green woman with a clumsy-inducing aura and some solid smackdowns. With the final level of this fully formed Floral Fiend, we feature ability boost to Dexterity, Constitution, Intelligence, and Wisdom. With that intelligence increase, she will become trained in Stealth. She's gone on a few heists in her time, and then closes out her class feats with Verdant Presence. This allows her to create even more difficult terrain, like that was lacking from her kit, but her whole thing is about the profund proliferation of plant life, and this is pretty perfect for that. Then we do finish everything off with Legendary Medic, taking one final legendary skill feat for the road that she can use to cure grave conditions such as blinded, deafened, or doomed. Let her be the savior that she wants to be. Now, when it comes to playing Poison Ivy, keep in mind that you're a druid, with a lot of options available to you. To stay true to Poison Ivy though, you'll want to focus on choices based around fungus, plant, poison, and wood traits, which should give her some decent range between fortitude and reflex targeting effects. Will save is just a weakness of primal spells in general, and remember, you can always try to flavor a spell as being a plant-based effect in some way. Now among the spells I suggested here, the big focus is Zone Control. Ivy is fantastic about creating fields of difficult terrain that enemies will have to struggle through, and can combine those with hazardous terrain. But you might have to be a little wary of where you place this stuff so as to not inconvenience your allies. As for a free archetype game with Ivy, her options are honestly a little rough because plant-based choices feel a little lacking. She could take the Alchemist earlier and probably expand on it a bit, which might give her a chance to go Order Explorer for the Untamed Order to better use Plant Shape. But beyond that, I'd actually probably consider a Sorcerer Dedication that uses the Fae or Nymph bloodline, so that she can gain access to spells such as Charm. Though I do think that the Nymph ultimately fits her just a bit better. Are flowers flourished, but is she properly built or have some weeds cropped up in this garden? Let's review and find out. Poison Ivy is an Ardande human druid who's a member of the Leaf Order and has a background as a wonder taster. This and her Alchemist dedication explores her study and development of chemistry, and the pharmaceuticals she partook in, before becoming the villainess that she is today. As to the alteration that she underwent during her work with Woodbrew, I have her utilizing the Ardande heritage and taking feats such as Poison Resistance, Sunlit Vitality, and similar choices. Her pheromone powers might be slightly underrepresented in this build, but she does work in options such as Cordyceps Command and Irresistible Bloom. Additionally, her Alchemist archetype will let her make Silvertongue mutagens and other chemicals to aid her in controlling and manipulating others. What this build does focus on way more is her Chlorokinesis and Toxikinesis, represented through her vast array of plant and poison-based spells. Entangling Flora is a classic that lets her trap others, while she might rely on more powerful spells such as one with the land to bring skyscrapers low. Plant spells in general have a large focus on area control, but she can tap into an astounding array of options to represent her mastery over the green. Furthermore, she can recover from even the most grievous wounds with the help of her fast recovery, floral restoration, and the occasional regenerate spell. Favoring Flora over Fauna, this felonious femme fatale finds foul formulas to flood the fields and fatherlands with flourishing flowers and foliage that fells familiar folk. You can go ahead and vote on the next rebuild in my post, though I will be taking a hiatus in January to work on another project. In the meantime, let me know what you think of this build, as well as what other sorts of builds you'd like to see in a comment. If you like what you see here and want more, be sure to leave a like and then subscribe to the channel. You can also check out the blog, which is linked below along with the Twitter and Discord. Thanks for watching, and have a fantastic Friday.
So, walk around her?
I'll get you. Get back here.
So long, plant.